Hi there. I guess we're live now. I'm going to start the same chapter in the Columbia Accident Investigation Board document. And in chapter 5, let me find my place in chapter 5. And I think we're at section 5.2, the NASA human spaceflight culture. And let's see, how many pages do we have here? Well, it's not that many. And then 5.3 is quite a bit. I thought, I would try to do a little bit at a time. Might only do 5.2 now. Because I don't want to read too much because then my throat starts getting weak and I should be actually doing the sermon, not doing too much of this on the Sabbath. I like to take Saturday as my Sabbath because that's what they did back, Jews did, and they've done that since forever. So they call that Seventh-day Adventist. I'm not a Seventh-day Adventist. I'm a Christian on the vine. I'm a branch on Jesus' vine. So, anyways, though NASA underwent many management reforms in the wake of the Challenger accident and appointed new directors at Johnson, Marshall, and Kennedy centers, the agency's powerful human spaceflight culture remained intact, as did many institutional practices, even if in a modified form. As a close observer of NASA's organizational culture has observed, cultural norms tend to be fairly resilient. The norms bounce back into shape after being stretched or bent. Beliefs held in common throughout the organization resist alteration. This culture, as will become clear across the chapters of Part 2 of this report, acted over time to resist externally imposed challenge. I know how that feels. You try to do something that's right. Well, sometimes we think we're doing something that's right and it's not right, but let's say you're trying to do something you think is right and no one really wants to, listen that much. You got to listen to everybody when they have something I got some ants here. They think something's not right, maybe you don't want to deal with it. You got too much work on your plate and you just want to get it off your plate, but you still got to listen to these people. That's part of your work. That's your job. Do the job right, and if someone gives you a recommendation, you should, they're trying to help you. Actually, they're giving you something to help you do your job better. So let's see. The culture, as will become clear across the chapters, Part 2 of this report, acted over time to resist externally imposed change. By the eve of the Columbia accident, institutional practices that were in effect at the time of the Challenger accident, such as inadequate concern over deviations from expected performance. Okay, so by the eve of Columbia accident, institutional practices that were in effect at the time of Challenger accident, such as inadequate concern over deviations from expected performance, a silent safety program, and schedule pressure. So yeah, I agree with that. Schedule pressure. I don't know too much about that safety program stuff, but this concern over deviations from expected performance. So an added concern. That means, something happens, like I told you the other day, my car is making a noise. Like I think it's a pulley or something. I drive around with that noise and drive it today, I drive it tomorrow, and there's a noise, and the next day, and even when my wife says something like, "What's that noise?" I say, "Oh, it's okay." So it's kind of like that. You drive in the car and it's okay, and you think it's going to be okay, but you need to take a look at under the hood. So organizational culture refers to the basic values, norms, beliefs, and practices that characterize the functioning of a particular institution. At the most basic level, organizational culture defines the assumptions that employees make as they carry out their work. It defines the way we do things here. An organization's culture is a powerful force that persists through reorganizations and departure of key personnel. That's really true. Um, this is insightful here. Um, I don't know. I kind of tend to be myself, and it's okay. Maybe I don't fit in all the time, but um, a little bit of salt or pepper on the culture is good, good, in my view. But anyways, I'm kind of talking my own thoughts here, and maybe you just want me to read the CAIB. If that's what you want, you have a chance to put that in a comment. Just don't be afraid. Just say down there. I'd rather you just read the CAIB instead of talking your own opinions. So, but if you like my opinions, maybe you can say something like that too. Or you can provide your own opinions in the comments. So, the human space flight culture within NASA originated in the Cold War environment. The space agency itself was created in 1958 as a response to the Soviet launch of Sputnik. The first artificial Earth satellite, 1961, President John F. Kennedy charged the new space agency with the task of reaching the moon before the end of the decade and asked Congress and the American people to commit the immense resources for doing so, even though at the time NASA had only accumulated 15 minutes of space flight experience. With its efforts linked to US Soviet competition for global leadership, there was a sense of NASA workforce. There was a sense in the NASA workforce that the agency was engaged in historic struggle central to the nation's agenda. There was a sense. Well, of course, there was a sense. That was pretty important. I'm surprised they didn't mention anything about, the German, where that's where the rocket started. And, we had German scientists. Surprised they didn't mention any of that kind of culture. We'll see. The Apollo era created at NASA an exceptional can-do culture marked by tenacity in the face of seemingly impossible challenges. This culture valued the interaction among research and testing, hands-on engineering experience, and a dependence on of the exceptional quality of its workforce and leadership that provided in-house technical capability to oversee the work of contractors. Okay, I guess where that's right here. I think they need to do some editing. It says, and a dependence on the exceptional quality of its workforce. So I think maybe when they were writing this sentence, they were going to say the exceptional quality of the workforce, and then someone, maybe put in there of its workforce, but somehow they left of its workforce. So they need to go back and edit that. That reminds me of a good friend of mine at work. His name is Tim. I don't know if I can say his last name, but I'm going to say it anyways. And if someone doesn't like it, I'll redo this. But Tim Adams, he's very good at when he reads books. I mean, he goes through them and he edits everything. And I mean, he has notes. And then Then he'll contact the publisher and, let him know what he found. So, okay, maybe we can do that with the CAIB. I can see how he can help me to do that. The culture also accepted risk and failure as inevitable aspects of operating in space. Because it's a risky thing when you're doing something new like that that's never been done before. Just like they did when they sailed over to, what was it, Christopher Columbus, and before that it was, what was that guy from Norway, uh, Eric Leaf, I don't know, the one that was, they say came here first, but then the Chinese also came to the United States, I think way before the one that went to Iceland or Greenland. Actually, I think it was they were in Iceland, and they called it Iceland, and they called the other one Greenland because they wanted people to go to Greenland, and they didn't want them to go to Iceland. Eric Lifeson or something like that. I don't know. Wait, let me look that up. Eric. Let's see. Eric Lifeson was a Norse explorer from Iceland. He is thought to have been the first known European to have set foot on continental North America. Okay, so I was right. Let's go back to the CAIB. So, a dramatic Apollo 11 lunar landing in July 1969 fixed up NASA's achievements in the national consciousness and in history. However, the numerous accolades in the wake of the moon landing also helped reinforce the NASA staff's faith in their organizational culture. Apollo successes created the powerful image of the space agency as a perfect place, as the best organization that human beings could create to accomplish selected goals. During Apollo, NASA was, in many aspects, oh shit, I just lost my place. Oh boy, I lost my place. It's gotta be here somewhere. I think I skipped something here. No, I didn't. Okay, let me see. In many aspects, a highly successful organization capable of achieving seemingly impossible feats. The continuing image of NASA as a perfect place in the years after Apollo left NASA's employees unable to recognize that NASA never had been and still was not perfect, nor was it as symbolically important in the continuing Cold War struggle as it had been for its first decade of existence. NASA's, wait a second, never had, unable to recognize that NASA never had been and still was not perfect, nor was it as symbolically important in the continuing Cold War struggle as it had been for its first decade of existence. NASA personnel maintained a vision of their agency that was rooted in the glories of an earlier time, even as the world and thus the context within which the space agency operated changed around them. Very interesting. There's a lot of blah, blah, blah here, about, making, I don't know where they're getting this psychology from, unless this person that wrote this actually lived. And, I mean, this is a lot of accusations here that someone from the outside, maybe they could make those and not know what they're talking about. But surprised this is in the CAIB report. I mean, anyways, I don't know how they prove that. Maybe there's some references that prove that, that somehow, this sounds like a lot of assumptions. I'm sure there were some people that, a lot of people that, you have to be confident when you're doing stuff. Maybe the person that wrote this doesn't have a lot of confidence. So, they see someone with confidence and they feel a little bit intimidated. They got to write something bad about NASA. As a result, NASA human spaceflight culture never fully adopted the space shuttle program with its goal of a routine access to space rather than fully exploration beyond low Earth orbit. The Apollo era organizational culture came to be in tension with the more bureaucratic space agency of the 1970s, whose focus turned from designing new spacecraft at any expense to repeatedly flying a reusable vehicle on an ever-tightening budget. This trend toward bureaucracy and the associated increased reliance on contracting necessitated more effective communications and more extensive safety oversight processes than had been in place during the Apollo era. But the Rogers Commission found that such features were lacking. In the aftermath of the Challenger accident, these contradictory forces prompted a resistance to externally imposed changes and an attempt to maintain an internal belief that NASA was still a perfect place alone in its ability to execute a program of human spaceflight with NASA centers. A human spaceflight program managers strove to maintain their view of the organization. They lost their ability to accept criticism, leading them to reject the recommendations of many boards and blue ribbon panels, the Rogers Commission was among them. Well, maybe they got something here. Maybe they were. External criticism and doubt rather than spurring NASA to change for the better instead of reinforce the will to impose the party line vision on the environment, not to reconsider it. According to one authority of organizational behavior, this in turn led to flawed decision making, self deception, introversion, and diminished curiosity about the world outside the perfect place. NASA human space flight culture and board found during its investigation manifested many of these characteristics, in particular a self-confidence about NASA possessing unique knowledge about how to safely launch people into space. Well, I don't know, but I think, if there's anybody that knows how to launch people into space, and, it would be NASA. So I think that is probably true. They have unique knowledge. So they said NASA spaceflight culture and the board found an investigation manifested many of these characteristics about being self-deception, introversion, and diminished curiosity about the world outside the perfect place. I don't know. This is a lot of words here trying to, sounds like conjecture. And then they use this part here saying, in particular, a self-confidence about NASA possessing unique knowledge about how to safely launch people. Well, I don't think anybody else has any more knowledge than NASA does about that, except for maybe like the Russians. They have, they're doing it too. As will be discussed later in the chapter, as well as in chapter 6, 7, and 8, the board views this cultural resistance to fundamental impediment to NASA's effective organizational performance. It might be so, of course, but what I read so far, it's blah, 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 without any evidence. An agency trying to do too much with too little. That's 5.3. And I guess I'll finish this page, or no, I'm going to wait till the next reading, 5.3. I'm going to stop here. So I'm not saying they don't have any, but I think, it depends how you read this. You can read this as NASA being so arrogant that they don't listen to anybody, or you can say, well, maybe they need to be a little bit less confident in everything, so they would listen to others. So it just kind of sounds a little strong. NASA's a big organization. There's a lot of people, so I'm not sure how they got these words, but it's a little bit strong. So I think. And I don't want to say anything. I've seen some movies and stuff about this, and what happened, and yeah, there might be some. I think it has a lot to do with power. People. Some people have more power than others, and then they kind of. I don't know. I don't know what happens to them. They are not people anymore. They're not like people anymore. So it happens everywhere. I think it's happening now. I don't like to mix. This is my own view, but you had this concern about voter fraud, and then they went to the Congress to vote on it, and then some people came up and said they had a lot of evidence, or not evidence, but they had like reason to think there might have been fraud. But it seemed like when they did the vote, there wasn't really a review of, trying to review, or maybe, and I guess maybe that's not the job of in Congress, but we just kind of voted that there was no fraud. But just because they voted there's no fraud doesn't mean there is no fraud. And I think the same thing happened with Challenger. Just because they, voted in a big room, well, the O-rings are going to be okay, doesn't mean the O-rings were going to be okay. So maybe that's a good comparison, but some of you will probably not like that. But that's okay. Just put it in the comment. Okay, well, thank you, God, for all your blessings, and help us to try to do better, and help NASA to try to do better, and we'll see you the next time. Just remember, do what Jesus told you to do, and you'll be okay. I'm just adding a little bit of gospel in here because that's what I normally do.